All right.
Here we go.
Good to go?
Yep.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Welcome back to the Iron House podcast. It's your boy, Daryl.
And this is Roy.
And we just gotta talk about the breaking news in the powerlifting world, in the IPF anyway, with the new bench rules.
The new bench rules that I didn't think were ever gonna come or happen.
Yeah.
Because there were some rumors going around, and I was like, it's not gonna happen. It's too hard to make an actual rule.
Yeah,
but
there were a lot of people pushing for it, though.
Yeah, true.
And before we get into exactly what the rule is, let's take it chronologically. So, in powerlifting and bench pressing, the rule is that you get your start command, the barbell has to travel downwards, has to touch your chest. You get a press command, it has to come up. But what's happened, especially more recently in the past few years, with more people powerlifting and the more people who compete in the sport, the broader the characteristics and the attributes of the athletes become. And what you have then is some people are able to create such a big arch that their range of motion, so the amount of space that the barbell has to travel, becomes so minimal that it can be seen as unfair.
Yeah, there were some people starting to pop up who were were almost able to touch their chest to the bar without actually lowering the bar.
Exactly. So basically, borderline contortionists who can just flex their spine and bend and arch in a way that it makes them maybe not completely the only reason why, but it definitely helped them move a very impressive amount of weight. Let me put it that way. So there have been a lot of cries out for people who wanted more regulation on how you can make the sport more fair, I guess.
Yeah, because I think some rumors also started popping up like last year, maybe 2 years ago, and then nothing really happened.
No.
So I thought the same was going to happen this time.
Yeah, but I've been hearing about it since we started Iron House. There's always been talk about it. And
yeah, okay, look, there's always been talk about it, but, people always screaming about stuff on the internet. And
exactly.
It's a different thing where the actual biggest powerlifting federation ever is trying
actually
to come up with a rule. That's a
yeah.
different thing than just people on Instagram screaming about it,
Yeah. So that's how it's always been. The only rule was you got to touch your chest and you got to press the bar back up and follow the commands. And for the people who have, I guess, let's say, a mechanical advantage in that sense, were able to move a lot of weight, but they were technically still following the rules.
Yep.
Regardless of the range of motion being sometimes less than half or less than a third of other people in that weight class. And of course, it has to do with also, your grip width. The wider you grab the bar, there's also the rule on bench pressing that you have to you have to have contact with the rings on the barbell. Yeah,
because that's also where the small range of motion comes from, is the fact that the maximum grip width is the same for every weight class.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tall, but somebody who is like 150 centimeters tall, it has the same maximum grip width, which for them is like super wide.
Exactly.
If I get because for me, I'm almost at the maximum. I have my middle finger on the ring. I could go to pointer finger. That still looks like a normal grip.
Yeah.
Most people, but if you're like a 66 kilo lifter, then it's like super wide.
Then you have a wide grip, and the wider the grip, the smaller range of motion.
Yeah.
So this all comes from people trying to debate whether it's fair to have people, I guess, move the same amount of weight or same competitive weight, but just with, I guess, the argument is less actual effort being put in because you're doing less in the range of motion. Not my words, but that's just what this, it's a running joke in the powerlifting community that sumo is cheating. It's one of the, I think when we first started Iron House, the biggest joke was any joke regarding CrossFit, and now the biggest joke is still sumo is cheating.
Yeah,
with the same idea that it's easier to lift the bar, which is not always the case. I don't consider sumo cheating because when I do sumo, I move a lot less weight. I'm just not built for it.
Same.
But
I still like calling sumo cheating just because some people they get pretty mad about it. When in reality, I don't even care.
It just triggers people like a motherfucker.
Yeah, that's fun. And I've had plenty of athletes actually converted them to sumo. So I truly don't care. But
hey, in the sport of who lifts the most weight, whatever you got to do to lift the most weights, that's what you got to do. But so that's a bit of the whole, kind of the inside culture, the inside joke when it comes to anything involving range of motion. So now, I guess cries have finally been heard, and there has been an official announcement from the IPF that as of 2023, they're officially changing the rules for what qualifies as a good bench in a competition. So Roy, walk us through those rules. Tell exactly why it's also so different.
Well, there's 3 rule changes. There is the most commonly, or people that what most people have probably seen is now there's now a minimum range of motion where now the elbow joint needs to come lower than the shoulder joint. It's not exactly clear what they're pointing to because they have some like pictures in the rule book and they seem to point to like the hard point that's on here, like your AC joint. But we'll have to see how the judging works out.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as judging depth. I mean, the judge has to see it and be convinced, I guess.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that works. Then now you can't put your feet on the bench anymore for your setup, or before you could. And there's also a minimum amount of your butt that needs to be on the bench for like the starting position. But it's also a pretty unclear rule.
So does that mean you can't lift the bar out anymore with your ass off the bench? Is that what it means?
No, so now... because they included the picture, but like the picture wasn't very clear because they didn't have like a side angle.
It's a fucking picture also. There's not much you can figure out from one picture.
But it's like, you need a side angle where it's like, okay, this isn't allowed because he only has this percentage of his butt actually touching the bench.
So it's a butt on the bench rule?
Yeah, sort of. It's very unclear.
Okay, so what would be like completely wrong for that rule?
Well, so I think with the picture they included, it seems to be where like the lifter's butt isn't really touching the bench. It's only like sort of like his adductors.
Or like the upper hamstring?
Yeah, and like the upper part of the hamstring because like he has his feet like super wide. And
so his hips
kind of stick up. Yeah, you've probably seen the picture.
Yeah, it looks like a fucking upside down spider.
Yeah. And then they have like another picture where it's good and where like, they see it, like the lifter's butt actually make contact with the bench.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess that'll be more of a rule to get a start command.
Yeah. So you can still like lift off with your butt off the bench, but this is more so the starting position to get a start command.
Wasn't there a rule about like feet positioning on the bench? Like I know you can't touch the bench itself with your feet, but did they change something with that as well?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay.
You can't put your feet on the bench.
Yeah.
But that's the three rule changes.
So before we get to the big one, so one of them is have enough booty touching the cushion.
Yep.
2, no more feet on the bench, which I think is great. Because I think it's fucking unnecessary. I've almost never seen anyone have any kind of advantage in their bench for doing it. It's more of a mental like prep thing.
But that also makes it kind of weird that they don't allow it because like it's gonna not really change anything for how people
probably because they're tired of having their benches being fucking destroyed by people putting their shoes up on the bench. That's why I personally don't really like when people do that. But then again, I'm a gym owner. I speak from that perspective. But most of the time, especially for let's say anyone who's not a high-level lifter, it's mostly on stellaritis. You're trying to convince yourself that you're doing everything you can, but it's fucking unnecessary. You're not doing anyone any favors. You're not creating any extra leverage or anything. You're just whatever bend you can create in that position with your feet on the bench, you can't maintain when you put your feet down anyway. So you might as well learn to find a good, strong position in the position you're actually going to be benching in.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not a fan of that rule. I've had 2 people win bench records, and I've never had any need to want to put their fucking feet on the bench.
Yeah.
Stop doing that shit. Stop breaking people's fucking equipment with your feet on the bench.
Yeah.
Fucking children.
That's probably also why it's like the least invasive rule because it doesn't matter for too many people. And the people that actually need to change something probably...
Minimal change.
Yeah, I'm not expecting them to have like much trouble.
I'm exaggerating, but it's obviously not a big deal. But I just also think, don't overcomplicate things with fucking having to put your feet up on the bench and put it down. So I agree with that rule. Yeah. Now we get into the big and juicy one.
Yeah, the minimum accepted range of motion.
Yeah. So the rule is, again, that in order to have a more fair competition amongst people and have a more fair judgment of strength output, everyone has to try and move the barbell the same amount of, cover the same amount of area in space compared to each other.
Sort of.
Yeah. So the hope is that by doing this, you're going to eliminate that one person has, let's say, roughly 25 centimeters of range of motion, while the other person is only working with 10, making it obviously a lot easier to.
Yeah, well, there were some people who legit probably only like maybe move the bar 5 centimeters.
Probably. So
like not even exaggerating.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure also so those extreme cases and also those extreme cases in the higher level competitions that started probably prompting a lot of people to talk about it, and a lot of emails come in from coaches and places people complain.
Yeah, because
everyone who loses or probably gets 4th place, so doesn't get a medal placement because they lost to someone who has a 2 centimeter range of motion, is probably the one who sent the email first.
Yeah, and it also happened after the bench world championships. Because if you look at like full power world championships, it's not that much of an issue because most of the people that have like extreme arches and extremely limited range of motion aren't that good of like in the total because you're usually not that good in a squat and deadlift. But then when you have a championship with only bench, then yeah, the issue really becomes apparent.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it? Agree, disagree, indifferent?
I don't know, man. We'll have to see.
So not with the application of it, just with the rule itself, the idea of it.
I'm not sure yet.
No,
I'm still not sure.
Yeah, you're
because most people like don't realize that arching a lot is fucking hard. Like I have a pretty big arch myself, especially for a 105 lifter. That shit is fucking hard, man. Like putting yourself in such an uncomfortable position, set after set after set. But also a lot of people don't realize.
But you still have an actual range of motion.
Yeah, because I'm just tall.
Yeah.
But if I were like 20 centimeters taller, I'd be like, total cheater bench. Basically.
See,
yeah.
So you're already kind of, prompting how
but I'm calling it a cheater bench so everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But what did I want to say? And what also a lot of people don't realize is the shorter range of motion, the more work you got to do. Because it seems fun to only have like a 5 centimeter range of motion, but now you got to like bench 6 days a week and do 10 sets every session to like get any sort of normal training volume done.
Yeah, but I think most people who have those small range of motions, they do still train properly. All the accessory or all the additive training around it, and they just benefit from that. I'm pretty sure when they do dumbbell presses, they still do real range of motion, but they can transfer that skill into, now I'm doing only a very small range of motion. Because you say that arching is not an easy thing to do, which is true. But I'm willing to bet that most of the people who are, let's say, excessively using that loophole in the rules, arching is probably not that hard for them, because how much they can arch, they're probably naturally good at arching. They have just the build for it.
Yeah, true.
So I don't think I'm not going to give them like points for the hard work of arching. It's probably really easy for these fucking flexible motherfuckers.
It's uncomfortable, man.
It's uncomfortable. But let's say for those people, it's probably a lot easier to arch and bench heavy than it is for you to arch and bench heavy.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it'll take you a lot more out of you to do that. And some people are just fucking flexible and they can just fucking bend their spine away and have this much of a range of motion.
Yeah, but I'm also pretty worried about like the implications as far as judging goes, because bench is already a lift with the most rules. Because judges gotta look for the feet being flat on the floor, butt being on the bench, head being on the bench. The head judge has to wait for the bar to become motionless for you to have a press command and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And now they're adding even more stuff on top of that.
And there's more obstructions also. There's more layers of things to look at, so more things that can obstruct each other. So it's also harder to judge.
Yeah. And even now I've already like seen some things not get caught, like lifters' butts being off the bench or lifters' feet not being flat on the floor and them not getting called for it.
Yeah, true.
So adding even more on top of that is going to probably make that happen even more.
So that's what I'm curious about. Is because they're adding a whole new rule and it's a big thing, everyone's talking about it, it has a lot of attention. I wonder now if there's going to be so much focus on looking at that judges are going to be distracted from the other things. People are going to get away now with...
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting to happen. It's also like...
So more butts off the bench, but everyone's paying attention to the elbow, so no one really notices.
Yeah, and then I'm also thinking how are they going to disqualify a lift? Because, you didn't agree with me when we talked about it last week, but I think that only the head judge can really see like the bench depth. But like the head judge can only give like a single red light. So how's that going to happen?
I think if the side judges are sitting properly and the rack is not in the way, you can because people like visually you extrapolate motion. So if you're seeing the elbow travel down, and let's say it gets covered by the rack, but you see continuous motion, you're just going to extrapolate and assume from if the whole body part kept moving, it obviously went lower than that. So I think that's what's going to happen. People are going to make that as a judgment call, seeing if. So as soon as I can't see the elbow anymore, if let's say it's lined up with the shoulder in my assumption, but the barbell's still moving down, that has to mean that the elbow went further down in the shoulder socket.
True. It's gonna be easy for like the not the cases that aren't like on the limit. Yeah. If your bench range of motion is
but those hair fine moments, that's when and
there's gonna be a lot of unfair calls.
Yeah, I think so too.
I
think more on the part of. It also makes the work for the judges more difficult.
Yeah.
Because as a side judge, are you also supposed to be looking for that, or are you going to then be the one responsible for looking for keeping your ass on the bench, for example? Or it makes it a very interesting dynamic because you can't put the three judges next to each other in the front and everyone looking at the elbows. You still got to be checking the feet.
Yeah, there's other stuff to check.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this to hate on the judges, but it's like their job's going to be hard.
Yeah, they're going to have a tougher time doing it right, and
their job was already hard.
Exactly, and a tougher time dealing with people complaining and being like, no, but look, it's there and there. And I think, do you think this is going to change people's lifting technique now?
Probably. Well, for some people, but for like a very small portion. Because the way they set up the rules now, and it kind of depends on how they're actually going to judge it. But if it's like through the elbow needs to become lower than the shoulder joint, that's pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
It's only like a couple % of lifters that'll actually have to like either change their arch or change their grip width.
Because I'm really wondering what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at the center position of the elbow, so where the elbow joint connects, or are they be looking at the bottom, like so where the skin actually ends and using that?
Because, I have the photos right here. Wow.
Yeah, but the photos are fucking, like they draw little fucking circles on it.
Yeah, because if you see that the circles, like the line points towards like the pointy bit of the shoulder.
Yeah, so the middle of the circle is focused on the edge of the elbow, so that should be it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to slow down competition more than people think at the beginning because we're going to have to get used to it. I think everyone because this thing has been memeified like a motherfucker ever since it's been announced. It's everyone's talking about it, and you have a lot of lifters who they know 100% that they always bench correctly. They always bench with enough range of motion. I think a lot of people now they're recording themselves and checking, okay, am I actually following the rules now? And they're starting to notice, okay, I'm actually probably a little bit borderline. Same as in training. Most people, not everyone always squats to depth.
True.
It's kind of a close call, a shallow call. So,
but the thing about squatting is it's a lot easier to just squat a bit deeper than it is to like bench deeper.
Yeah, because your chest is in the way.
Yeah, because the chest is like a hard point, and it's kind of hard to like just arch a bit less. But like if you already have the flexibility, then it's just getting tight.
Yeah. And arching less is hard because it's hard to consciously choose for a disadvantageous
arch
position.
like 3 centimeters less because I need 3 centimeters more. Like what?
Yeah,
I can't do that.
But it's also just if you're an athlete and you've trained a certain way, it's just also it's hard to choose for a less advantageous position.
Yeah,
because the more I arch, the less range of motion I have. Even though like everyone's trying to achieve less range of motion, but with this new rule, within the margin of what's allowed, but to just tell yourself, okay, I have to, I guess, work less hard or make less effort to lift this heavy thing. Yeah. I think that's going to be such a weird mind fuck for people.
Yeah, what I've seen recommended is not changing your arch, but just changing your grip width.
Yeah,
so that's easier to actually measure.
Yeah, I think that would be the best call for most people. Yeah. And also just probably changing the landing position for the bar placement on your chest.
Yeah,
a lot of people also now they have a really wide grip, and the barbell comes really, really shallow on the chest, so borderline on the stomach. Mm-hmm. And then the barbell stay higher, but you can still contact your sternum by moving a few centimeters up. Yeah, that should also save you a few centimeters on the range of motion.
Yeah.
Do you have any athletes of yourself that that bench with a really big arch who you might have to adjust for?
No, nobody.
No, me
like
either.
I said, it's only like a couple %, and it's like because it has to be like it's only the people that can arch a lot and are like in a lighter weight class.
Yeah.
So like the really lightweight men and the lightweight women's classes.
But there are some big boys in heavyweights class too who also have a wide grip and like they put the barbell really low, and they might be just on the edge. So I'm of the mindset of I don't fuck with the edge. I want to know 100% for sure I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah, I tend to agree unless you're like really, really, really competitive.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more. I think it's gonna affect more people who are just on the edge. So there's a small, like you said, a small group of people who are definitely overarching or having a really, really small range of motion.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure there's a large group of people who are not sure. They just don't know for sure, or they look at the videos and like, I think so, but I don't want to risk it, or or they're gonna overdo it on the opener.
Yeah, but I think especially in the beginning, at least I hope people are gonna like keep it pretty safe because we'll actually have to see like what the judging is like.
Yeah,
I'm also like sadly like nationals is already in February, because yesterday I saw, I don't know if you follow him, but Calgary Barbell, Bryce Karchek,
Absolutely.
made a video about it. He was like, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it unless you have like a competition in January. I was like, fuck.
February.
Nationals is February.
Yeah.
And it's
So
like,
you worry about it.
it's like probably going to be like the second meet of the year in the Netherlands. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be fun. I'm expecting some long press command.
I wonder how they're implementing it. I mean, are they already trying to reschool judges now to prepare for next year? Because again,
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. But
because I hope that like by the time we're getting actual meets where like the rules are in place, there won't be any discussion about it. Because that's the point that Bryce also made on this video. It's like the fact that we need to have a discussion about it means it's not clear, and it should be clear.
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about the most. It's gonna slow down competition. If every single time someone gets like a bad call, they have to get up and be like, "What do you mean?" Or like you know the whole discussion with the judges and like in that case, if you feel like you've really been unfairly judged, I guess well-placed unsportsmanlike behavior, to just be like, well, what do you mean? Like I've always benched this way, and I know for sure. I've read my videos, and if the competition you're at is like poorly lit, if it's not a well-lit platform, it's also going to give trouble.
Yeah.
So I think it invites a lot of moments of, I guess, unrest and debate and discussion, and then puts pressure on the judges. And I wouldn't be surprised if most judges were like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to give this a white light because I don't want to. Like we still got more groups to go, so let's fucking get through this.
Yeah.
I'm happy that my athletes just have a very normal range of motion, so it's not something we have to worry about too much. I also think that there's a lot of people now who are training. You see on Instagram that they opt for that extra wide grip, and I mean not everyone has a really extreme arch, but they try to arch as much as they can, but they go for extra wide grip. But people don't realize that doesn't work for everyone. It's not an instant advantage. Same as not everyone gets instantly stronger when they go sumo. Yeah. Like a super wide bench, you might be forfeiting a lot of just muscular strength and being able to move weight by choosing to go for the widest grip possible. And a lot of people, and you see that because everyone just wants to get more and more and more. They think, oh, this is the right way to do it. They kind of get lost in that. See, a lot of young lifters also, they are all benching super, super wide, but they're not really moving real weight. And it might be because you're not, that grip just doesn't suit your body, doesn't suit how your muscles want to load and move weight the best as possible.
And it's also something you usually have to work up towards.
Yeah,
because I see a lot of people who like just start benching, who I see with a powerlifting class, usually like a very close grip is a lot more comfortable for them. If you move them like any wider, they don't have any stability at all.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't notice how stronger they could be if they do just try and bench a little bit narrower. It's a much comfortable position for your shoulders. It's easier also to get the barbell a little bit lower onto your chest with a smaller grip. And let's be honest, like Dutch lifters aren't known for their benching prowess. That's why some of the few great bench pressers that we have a lot of them, but they jump out as the exception. There's a lot of people who, compared to what they can squat and deadlift, you're like, why are you squatting 270 but benching 120? That's weird. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, but I think it's just like a thing where some people just go train too specific too soon.
Yeah, like
without like they go like all in on max leverage, trying to lift the most amount of weight within the rules when they've only been training for like 1 or 2 years. And it's like like maybe scale that back, actually get a bit more general strength before you get really specific.
Yeah, so I think this rule might help some people. Maybe in the sense that it scares people like, oh shit, well, I bench super wide and I know for sure my elbows aren't low enough. I'm going to go switch it up, start training also a little bit narrow. Be like, oh wow, damn. Like instantly it's easier to move weights because I'm incorporating more muscles into my movement. I'm able to load the weight better onto my body instead of having this really weird turkey wing fucking widest possible bench. Do you think that this is just the first of more rules coming to create a more even playing field in powerlifting? Because what about the discussion of sumo? There was a very interesting video that I saw in certain weight classes when they compare sumo to conventional, and they measure where the barbell stops. That the point they were making is that a lot of the people on the third lift of the conventional, they miss their lift after the height of where the same weight class someone lifting sumo. So the barbell range, the range of motion for the sumo stopped lower than where a lot of the guys in conventional failed their lift. So I mean, that's a little bit more difficult to make a call on, but I wouldn't be surprised if people start, saying that there has to be a minimum range of motion for the sumo.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I think people are going to complain about it.
Yeah, but people always complain about shit.
But this is now, you have now the first time an example of them opening a door to that kind of discussion. And when is enough? People who have then, again, some people lift a crazy amount of weight, but the plates are just about this off the ground. Compared to someone who's literally having 3 times as much range of motion. Like, is it a fair comparison?
True. But usually when that's the case, it's just how somebody's built. It's not like it's not really an unfair advantage within the rules. Like, you can't just make your arm shorter.
No.
So that's the thing. And if you start like banning stuff like sumo, then you also start like limiting the amount of body types that can compete in the sport. Because some people just are not built for a conventional deadlift.
No, I agree. All I'm saying is that because right now the argument is that some people can complete the lift with less range of motion. They can move the same weight or they can move more weight because they're doing less work.
True.
That's a discussion right now. And that's always been the running joke with sumo, that people lift a crazy amount of weight, but the plates move this much off the ground. And someone who has to lock out on a conventional, they have just way more work to do. They're doing a ton more work. And if you're one of those people who are super strong, but you're absolutely not fucking built for sumo, then you're going to feel like as if you're not being fairly judged because, well, I also move the same weight till that part. I just couldn't get it further up to my lockout,
Yeah, true. But like a lot of the times people don't realize that the range of motion doesn't really affect like your max strength, Like the amount of work you do in like a single repetition doesn't really influence your max reps, like at all.
No.
Because if that were the case, we'd all be lifting sumo, but
exactly.
We aren't, so...
I just think it's with the global town square and the loudspeaker that is social media, people are gonna be chattering about it a lot.
What's also funny is like a lot of the times where people complain about sumo, they're complaining about a setting which isn't similar to a competition at all.
No.
Like they're complaining about somebody that's deadlifting on a deadlift bar with bumpers
straps
all the way to the end,
yeah.
With straps where the bar is like barely in their fingertips and like yeah, okay, that's cheating, but it's also not allowed in competition.
It's not even really a fair comparison.
Yeah.
Because it's like saying someone who does conventional grabs a deadlift bar and pulls off blocks. Yeah, it's also not a fair comparison.
True.
Calibrated plates, stiff bar, then we can all measure a little bit more equally.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have in every sport, you're gonna have people who are just built to perform better than you are. I mean, no one tells Yao Ming, the tallest fucking basketball player, the Asian dude, oh, you're too tall because you can just stand there and dunk the ball. That's not really fair compared to fucking Muggs, who is a short guy. You're always going to have that. You're always going to have people who are just genetically built to outperform you, so you just got to outwork them.
Yeah. And also something that I just realized is so that there's a lot of people complaining about sumo, but then there's also most of the untested federations, I don't know if you've heard about this, have switched to the kabuki deadlift bar. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Is the kabuki more wobbly?
Yeah, like even more.
Than a normal...
Yeah,
like Texas Power Bar.
Yeah, because the Texas Power Bar is already like pretty bendy, and the kabuki deadlift bar is even more bendy. It's like thinner and even longer, and it's like so they're moving towards like where the range of motion is getting even shorter.
Jesus,
because there's been some guys that are like deadlifting like enormous weights. I'm talking like over 400 or 450 kilos, and like the plates barely get this much off the ground because there's so much bend in the bar
that they're lifting quite a bit of the barbell, but the plate is still on the ground because it's just fucking sliding.
Yeah, and what you also now see is that like a lot of the records are broken, but is it like because people are getting stronger or because they're lifting on a bar that bends more?
No, I believe records should only be compared to the same equipment use because one deadlift is the other. Same as like Eddie Hall's deadlift is not the same thing as a deadlift in a fucking powerlifting gym. It's just not. You can't compare the circumstances. It'll be the same equipment. Then there's a fair comparison. It should be a world record deadlift on a deadlift bar, world record deadlift on a stiff bar, world record deadlift on a fucking kabuki bar.
Yeah.
Interesting. We want to know your thoughts. What do you feel about these new rules? Does it affect you? Are you a powerlifter? Are you someone who benches maybe a little bit too wide with a small range of motion? Do you feel like you got to change a lot of shit now? I'm happy that all my athletes are good. And
me too. Makes my job a lot easier.
I hope the discussion of sumo doesn't come up because we just switched to sumo. A wider sumo stance for someone is going fucking fantastic. So let's hope that doesn't get touched. That's holy.
Yeah. Let
us know what you guys think. I think it's super interesting. I think it's also unprecedented, and I can't wait to see all the memes and crying and drama that comes from it. People complaining, oh, technically I won because I got it, but they don't think my range of motion was good enough. Hey, rules are rules. You got to in or you're out.
Yeah, I'm going to cry a lot about the long press commands I'm expecting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For them looking for the elbows, like, well, okay, press.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone start doing lots and lots of long pause training.
I'm afraid so.
Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave us a comment on your thoughts about this topic. If you are listening to this, please subscribe to our Spotify. It's also on Apple Podcasts. If you want to see our faces, you can also check it out on YouTube. Subscribe there as well. Peace in the East. Take it easy. We out.
See ya.
Tell the people they